Today on What is Tabletop, we discuss how to world build starting off with a small town.
Hi, welcome to What is Tabletop. My name's Frank. I don't know how to wear hats.
My name is Charles, and I do know how to wear hats because, well, my dad was in the picture.
I don't... What? I have a fuck. Whoa. That's not where I thought that was going. All right, I'm just going to put this hat on properly and also get my headphones on while you introduce more things, really you monster.
All right, hi guys, welcome back to What is Tabletop. So, as you can see, I am not kidnapped. I am here. No one is forcing me to be here. I'm here of my own volition.
Charles, they should have watched the last episode. They're fine. We don't need to explain that again.
I'm back, baby.
Yeah, and I have a trucker hat.
My wife made them for us. They're very special.
Yeah, and if you want one, subscribe, and then eventually we'll have them.
Well, we'll have merch. If you're definitely interested in any kind of merch, let us know in the comments. Who knows? We may have a special order. We'll again, let us know. It's something we're definitely interested in doing for you guys.
And if you subscribe, once we hit 1,000 subs, we're going to do a Q&A, so we're looking forward to that. So please give us 1,000 subs so we can monetize our videos.
Or as the French call it, the quoi. They don't call it that. I'm sorry.
So what are we talking about today, Charles?
So we are talking about world building. We have talked about that in the past before, but specifically we're talking about starting off with a small town. Mm-hmm. Like, what are the things you need in that town and so on and so forth. Like what helps really immerse our players into this world you're building.
There's ultimately two kinds of way to do a world building. You do bottom up, which is starting with a small town, and then as the players explore the world, you kind of also create it. Yeah, or you could do what every other GM does, like me, and just always have too many ideas and constantly keep world building, and then you have an entire continent and its geopolitical structure, and then the party never goes there because they decided to go on a rowboat to Sweden for some reason.
That sounds like someone needs to write a book.
Yes, sometimes you just need to write a book.
Like, if look at Brian Sanderson, right?
Brandon.
It's okay. I said Brandon Sanderson.
You said Brian.
I definitely said Brandon. Please edit that out. I mean, look at Brandon Sanderson, who,
Yes, Brandon Sanderson.
Brandon Sanderson. God, I'm so sorry.
That's all good.
I knew I was going to butcher it as soon as I said it. I was like, I'm going to butcher his name.
All good. So we're going to start with talking about a small town.
Just a small town boy.
Yeah. No, we're done. All right. We're not going to get copywritten today.
Aha.
So why start with a small town? Well, because for whatever reason, we always like to have our fantasy stories start in one particular town. It doesn't have to be small. It can be of moderate size. Sure. But ultimately the idea is you start with a small town because you only have to have 3 things, right? Yeah. Let's think Pokemon, right? When you start in Pokemon, the town you start in is your mom's house, the professor's place, and that's it.
What's a Pokemon?
Oh God,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Charles, I know we have an age gap, but you should know what Pokemon is.
I felt the need to do it.
So if you're of culture, you would have started with the small town, right? And there's not much because the whole point is that you get to learn the basics of how things work, and then from there you get to start exploring and doing the things. And usually what will happen is, much like in a lot of stories, you have the small town that you're exploring, and then there's 2 or 3 different locations out of there that you're like, ooh, that's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of old school adventures kind of did this. You start in a small town, and oh no, the blacksmith's daughter got kidnapped by the trolls that went into the caves over there. You got to go rescue her.
That's a harmful stereotype, but yes.
Sorry, I should have said goblins.
Thank you.
The girl gets kidnapped, and you can go around the town, but ultimately it's gonna be at the blacksmith. It's gonna be one other thing, mm-hmm. and then you're gonna go do the thing, right? Even Skyrim does that. Sure, you start in a prison, but then the prison explodes and you go to a small town that has a few plot hooks that then take you further away.
Yeah, so basically your small town gives you that framework. Mm-hmm. It gives you that skeletal structure, if you will, of what the rest of the world looks like. So chances are, if you go in whatever's in this small town, you're probably going to find similar things in bigger towns. But then when you go to those bigger towns, they'll expand upon those. Maybe they'll have banks. Maybe they'll have religious institutions. Again, mm-hmm. You're going to keep growing because the world's going to continue growing around you.
The thing that's nice about a small town is you can allude to all that without having to actually do any of that work. So, for example, we can be in a small town and I can have a shopkeep, and then Charles's character can come in and be like, I would like to buy boots of speed. And he can be like, well, unfortunately...
No, I want boots with cocaine.
Okay. He might want a specific magic item, and then you have the shop owner who's like, unfortunately, I can't sell magic items. I don't have the means to. And then they could be like, why don't you have the means to? Oh, the king doesn't allow it. And then you can just stop there and you're alluding to a bigger world. But like, you don't have to do much. Like, they're not going to immediately be like, well, let's go find the king. And if they do, you just start building that spot. Yeah. Or you give a good reason to like, oh, well, if you want to meet the king, you actually have to do this quest first. And it turns out the king's ambassador got kidnapped by a bunch of goblins in the mine over there. Yeah, it's like, this is definitely not me forcing you to go to the mine because that's what I planned for in the encounter. But it's definitely me forcing you to go into the mine.
Imagine how filled that mine will be of things that you need to go find.
The blacksmith's daughter, the ambassador, the keys to the city. Again, it's three houses, so it's not many keys.
Charizard might be there. Who knows?
Ooh, that'd be fascinating, actually. But yeah, that's the nice thing about a small town is that you can also incorporate like so many things very simply, or you don't have to incorporate any of it. All you have to do is think about, okay, what are the 3 main buildings I want my players to interact with? What's a nearby place that's a cool geographical location that has a plot hook?
A landmark, yeah.
Right, a landmark of some kind that the players are going to explore. And here's the thing too, you don't have to fully flesh that out in the first session. Like your first session should just be like, I have planned an encounter in the mines to fight some goblins. I also planned a random encounter that maybe some bears attack before they get to the mines. Yeah. That's all you have to plan. The idea is, for some people, world building is a lot, and you think you have to come up with all these things. And in actuality, you don't. You just can put in the stuff that you think is interesting. If you think pantheons are interesting, that can be one of the 3 buildings. Is like, yeah, this is a small town, but it's a small town because a bunch of monks decided this is where we're going to build our monastery to the god of writing or whatever. And that's why this small town exists, is because up on the hill is the monastery, right? Boom. Now you got something interesting to do. And also it maybe makes the town a little more unique than something else.
And again, just like with any other town, there's going to be residential areas. So you don't have to explain every single thing. Like, because chances are you throw a rock, you're going to hit somebody's house. But don't feel the need to build something so vast, especially if you're worried it's going to be missed.
If you're the kind of person who still enjoys like pre-planning and stuff like that, like me, you can have a small town that's still like reserved. And what you can do instead of just being like, oh, I haven't planned anything out, you can allude to things, but you can also do what a lot of good stories do, which is in the first paragraph, first chapter, first scene of the movie, you kind of foreshadow what's going to happen. Let's say, for example, I'm going to have a lich be the big bad, right? Let's say hypothetically then my players go to a halfling mining town. Let's say then hypothetically they find a secret passageway that happens to contain a lich lair. Oh, and then they have the lich freed, and then they get a choice. Do they kill the lich or let him go? And for whatever reason, they decide to let him go. And those fools don't realize that's the big bad. And this actually happened. This was literally the only campaign I've had that goes from level 1 to 20. Wanted to introduce them to 5th edition. And I'm like, I'm just going to have the small town of halflings. And that's all I'm going to do, is just have it be at the literal crossroads of a major point.
Sure.
And they're just going to be invested. And I'm like, I'm going to introduce the lich early, but he'll come back. No, I got to like foreshadow it, but then it turns out they actually let him go because they were stupid. No, I'm kidding. It was apparently down to a vote, and apparently it was 2 people's faults. I don't know exactly how that worked out, but Hannah does. So it's all good. But yeah, that's the thing. You can like literally allude to things like that. You can plant a big seed. You can have it be where like the small town you start in actually ends up being where that party needed to go the whole time if you wanted to, if you're that kind of a person. But ultimately, the reason you start with a small town is just because it's the least amount of work you have to do.
Everything starts off, with a simple idea, a simple notion. You need a starting point. Sometimes if you go too big, it's hard to keep track of.
Right.
Even not even just for you, but for your players as well.
Right.
So again, I think starting off with a small town, like you said, with 2 or 3 main places. Again, if you need to add stuff later, there's no one stopping you from doing that, because again, chances are if you come visit back to that village, town, whatever later, maybe it's grown, maybe it's shrank, maybe it's destroyed. Again, things happen over the time where the characters aren't there.
Now, let's say instead of starting at a small town, you start at a city. Okay. Ideally, with a city, you're probably going to have a few things that most cities will have, right? So you're probably going to have a weapons shop, slash blacksmith. You're probably going to have some sort of magic shop if it's fantasy, or gun shop if it's sci-fi, stuff like that. So you're going to want to figure out whatever world I'm building, what is like the tropes that need to be associated with the city.
Taverns everywhere.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think you could just make a generic city. I think there should always be one facet about that city that makes it like stand out
Yeah, I agree.
in your world or from other ones. So for example, it could just be something as simple as there is a tower in the middle of the city and no one knows what it's doing there. And it's like, has anyone entered? Yep. Have people come out? We think. Right? Like maybe there's a legend about it.
I don't have time to keep up with these whippersnappers.
You can even like you can put these kind of like landmarks in there and just be like, I will not flesh it out unless the players decide to flesh it out. Now, also, you might know how well your players work, and if you say, hey, there's this magic tower that no one knows where it's going, and it's like, we're gonna be the ones to figure out what's in the tower, right? Yeah, we're gonna go do it. Yeah, so having a unique thing about it, it could be maybe the rules of the city are like no magic casting, and the second you start casting magic, then the players get like surrounded by guards. If you do something like that, be very lenient to the players. Like it should be like this is your first warning. You do not get a second, something like that. You don't want to be like, and you're immediately arrested. How did you not know the complicated structure? Right. So something unique about the city. And again, have some landmarks in there, right? Maybe there's one wizard tower that's off to the side. Maybe there's a castle. And again, that's abandoned. No one wants to go to it. Just having landmarks of some kind. Just think of like, what's a cool looking visual and just plant it there. You don't have to have a reason. You come up with the reason when your party decides to investigate it. That's like the beauty of Bottom Up is you don't have to go into the details of like, well, how does the city make its money? It doesn't matter. Like the party's not going to necessarily care. And if they do, that's when you start figuring that out.
So it's almost like Schrodinger's buildings. You know, it's nothing and everything until you decide what it is.
Right.
So like until the players decide what it's going to be, you know, that they're going to interact with it, that's when you get to decide what it's going to be. So like, don't worry about having an idea to right away. Oh yeah, you find this building. Well, what's in it? It's like, we don't know. You know?
Yep.
You want to investigate? And someone else will be, no, I'm good. I'm like, all right, then we move on. I did zero prep work for that because I didn't need to.
Yeah, but it makes your world seem bigger than it actually is, right? It's the iceberg method of you only see 10% of
correct.
You don't want to be an iceberg because like you put in 90% of the work and they only see 10%, but like you don't want to do that. You want it to be a hollow iceberg. I think there's 90% that you're hiding. When in actuality, there's another 10%. And you're like, please don't actually go in there. I don't have anything planned. It's
a gradual thing if you can make it happen. You don't have to Matt Mercer it where he has all the lore and everything built. And again, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But just bear in mind that when very very often you build a world, your characters won't always interact with everything you want them to interact with. So I think starting off with this small town, a few structures, makes your life a lot easier.
And I will say too, sometimes you get the players who are willing to like also contribute. And so let's say you start with that small town. You have the castle that looks overhead and no one has investigated it in 10 years. You have the mines that you're really wanting the party to go to because that's what you have planned. And you have a campsite that was like surprising, like for giants, a giant campsite, like further on. You might have a player who's like, well, in my backstory that they're just now telling you, I had a ancestor who went up into that castle. Run with it. Like, be like, oh, great. They might give me some information. Okay. Your ancestor went up there. Okay. Maybe they're still alive. And that's part of the charm of the castle is that actually it's not an evil castle. It's a good castle. And no, there's your ancestor that's still there. Or you can have some other thing. Like if a player starts expounding on the reason, like why something's there, run with it.
But letting your players really be a part of the story building and world building, it gives them that personal investment and it makes it a lot more enjoyable for you and the players to play in that world.
Critical Role's first campaign basically started as a bottom up because Matt Mercer just did it as a one shot and then he just started slowly growing it out. What was also nice about that is you had Taliesin, Percy, get to say he was a nobleman from Whitestone. And the players can be like, I haven't heard of Whitestone before, right? Instead of having to have the metagame where they're like, oh, well, we saw the map ahead of time. And so, like, you can't be from there because we already know that Frank pre-planned this. And so you're just saying that just to you know, you get less metagaming that way. Yeah, and you can get some more cool reveals where it's like a player maybe 5 sessions in is like, hey, I actually want this aspect of my backstory. Can we incorporate that? It's a lot easier to do that when there's not already a pre-established thing.
What are some other important things that, you know, outside of just buildings and landmarks should we have, you know, in our small town?
Have some NPCs.
It should be populated.
Yeah, you should kind of have some people there.
How many do you think would be like a fair number?
So the way I've always broken it down is what is important, right? So I always look at it like, okay, who are the characters I want these players to interact with the most? They're going to get like notable things. And so like you might have the first person they talk to actually be a random townsfolk. Don't give the random townsfolk a name unless the players are like, tell me this person's specific name. Yeah. In which case you can just be like, oh, I don't know anything about that. You might want to talk to old Gregory over there. Gregory loves the castle. He goes up to see it every day, right? Now you have a plot hook, and it's a character tied to it. So ultimately, you want to give names to characters who are going to either give out information of some kind or like can seem important, right? So like not necessarily a small town, but like a bigger, or not a small village, but a big, like a medium-sized town is going to have a mayor, and the party is always inevitably going to want to talk to the mayor. So having like who's in charge of the town is usually a good one. If you have a faction that's in there, having that like one representative of the faction, even if that's not the leader, is a good thing.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was mentioning it while I was in Texas. I got to visit some family there, and I have a cousin there, and she has a bunch of children, and we did a one shot, and I realized I created one NPC, just one. I mean, there were other NPCs, but only one had a name and had, a voice and had any kind of personality. The rest of them were just very few interactions. I made sure the players interacted with each other. Again, when you're playing with small children, FYI, that's something probably you should always do. Well,
and especially that when it's the first few sessions, like you're going to want the party to figure out the party dynamic. Correct. And so having less NPCs is actually probably a better thing for sure. So ultimately, you're just going to want the clue givers to be there, or the quest givers to be there. And again, right, talking about it, I've had situations where I've created a town and I'm like, this is a very important NPC. Like their backstory is very important. The party is going to interact with them. I'm fleshing it out. Oh, you decided to go to the random potion seller who I just had to make up on the spot. Oh, you're spending more time with him than this guy I crafted. The amount of times that happens is quite a lot.
And then you can always just combine that character with the character spending a lot of time with.
Yeah. I mean, again, this was in my college campaign. I had Nick Moore was his name. And basically his dad was like in charge of the town before he got violently overthrown by a person who is an allegory for someone in the real world that I won't say, because what ended up happening is, like I said, I gave him a lot more backstory where it's he's supposed to be in charge, and like hopefully the party will help him get in charge. And then they found the potion guy and they're like, I need a potion guy. I'm like, cool, I'll just come up with a voice really quick. My name is there's a guy who walked in named Larry Laros, and he's a vendor. My name is Laros Vendor. And literally that became their favorite NPC of all time. And they were like, Laros, thank God you're here. We need your help doing this thing. He's like, of course, yes, I'm gonna go help you. You're my friends. We're friends. We're great. That was the character that they loved. And so instead of just being like, well, Nick is still here, I just put less emphasis on Nick's backstory, where I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna flesh it out as much.
Shifted it over to
no, but I didn't put it like, I didn't flesh it out anymore. But Laros, I was able to tie into the main campaign. There was a villain they were going after, and I made him his brother. And like, I even literally like said to their faces, I'm like, his last name was Vendor, and you thought that was his real last name. I made up the character, and they knew I made him up, but then I made him integral because the party kept going back to him. Yep. And that's where like the nice thing about just not fleshing things out too much can come into to effect.
It also sometimes can be more fun doing things a little more improvisational. Don't spend a lot of time on someone that your characters have no longer interact or stopped interacting with. At that point, you got to shift it over somehow, find a way to connect your other character that they've seemed to have grown attached to, and find a way to incorporate them into the story in a bigger part.
Yeah, for example, sometimes you have to come up with a 10th captain and you name him Josh as a joke, and they are like, we love Josh. We
did love Josh.
Yeah.
I stand Josh.
They took the made-up character on a quest, and I was like, oh no, but he's like level 0. And they're like, we don't care. We want Josh to come with us to this ancient city.
He was so mysterious. He had so much worldly knowledge.
I made him seem like an idiot. He was intentionally.
So
that you guys wouldn't.
An accent for him. Like, what was the accent?
It was just weird voice.
Weird voice. Like,
this is Josh. Yeah, I am a good old pirate captain.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and then, but again, like I said, I then took his backstory. I'm like, okay. All right. Yep. He's a level 20 mega wizard who's actually trying to kill one of the party members and succeeded.
It was beautiful.
So let's you want to make a small town?
Let's make a small town. Let's do it.
What's 3 buildings we can have that we kind of want to focus on, Charles?
Again, if you go cliche, You need like an inn/tavern.
Okay.
Someplace where the party could stay and or socialize.
Yes.
I think that's a super important in anything. It doesn't have to be a tavern, by the way. You need a location, though, I feel that where socialization is a part of it, because your characters need to interact with each other and other people.
And you can even have like some gambling going on.
Yeah.
If you're insane like me, you will come up with a unique gambling game that the players themselves can play at the table, and then they will spend 20 to 30 minutes playing that gambling game,
Losing
and
all their gold.
losing all their gold and saving you so much time from having to prep things. Okay, so yeah, no, a tavern and inn is really good, and then we can already think of the tavern keeper.
It's barkeep. Someone's got to run it.
Yep. So that's a person and a place. I'm gonna go a little bit off board. I liked the idea of a monk temple.
Okay.
Right. So you have a temple dedicated to the god of the sun.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like the big thing that the city is built around. It like you can almost see it how where it's like everyone came for the temple, and then some people were like, well, I'm the wife of the monk, so I'm just gonna start building my own house here. That way I don't have to keep going the 20 miles back home every year.
And then maybe to finish off, maybe a place where they can, like a general store, like they can,
Sure, yeah.
just buy something where they can purchase things if they have money or whatever.
For example, the general store can be like, oh, I only get supplies from this other city. I'm the only one who gets it, and my shipment's late. Boom, there's a quest right there.
That's in almost every role-playing game I think I've ever played, like not even just tabletop.
And you're doing the hollow iceberg where you're alluding to this bigger city of Westville, right? It's like, oh yeah, I get it from Westville, but the shipment's like 2-3 days late, and I can't leave my shop. Can you go figure out, like, if you see it?
Yeah, you know, I'll give you some money, or I'll give you some wares. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then I would say one monk, but like, let's not make it the monk who's like in charge, right? Because this is a brand new group. They're probably level 1.
Squire monk.
Yeah, it's gonna be like the newest recruit, and so
Yes.
like he's still like, yeah, I just got into the so I can't do anything mean because otherwise I might get kicked out. That's gonna be your guy. So you have
pacifist.
Yeah. So you got your tavern with the tavern keeper, you got your monk monastery with a brand new recruit, and you got your general store owner who's missing their wares. And you can even have each of those people kind of tie into the same quest. Maybe the innkeeper's like, yeah, business is kind of slow, which is weird for this time of year. But we only have one road, so like, I don't know what's going on. Like, that's all you have to say. Is like, we're a one road town and no one's coming in, which is odd. You can have, obviously, like we said, with the general store owner, where it's like, my shipment didn't come in. Can you check that road? And then with the monk, it could be like, well, I was told to meet another monk on this road. Can you escort me there? Right. So now you're getting them all in the same area, going the same way.
Yep.
And then you have that roving band of goblins show up to attack the mines. We've come up with stuff in the town to get them eventually going out.
Yeah, for sure.
We should come up with some sort of big landmark that's nearby. It doesn't have to be like in the immediate vicinity, but something that the players can see and be like, ooh, we might eventually want to go there. What's an idea you have, Charles?
So like, I'm always thinking of like more natural landmarks too, like mountains or like, a major forest, but even something like, I like the idea of like just even like you said, I think a really tower that just kind of sticks out. It's like, like, why is this tower here? There's no other buildings around it. It's the middle of nowhere. Why is this thing here?
Yeah, I had that exact thing happen in one of my campaigns where it's just a random wizard tower showed up, and the party was so curious, and that they just started investigating it, and then they got to meet a wizard, which was a very interesting experience for sure.
And I also like to, incorporating sounds too. Think about it, like, maybe maybe you see a forest and you hear sounds that wouldn't normally come out of a forest. Like that, that might pique their interest. So.
Right. And again, here's the thing too, that landmark doesn't have to have its own separate quest.
Correct.
You get to the tower and it's empty. Almost like the Rapunzel tower. It's like someone used to live here and now it's missing. And it looks like there was like you can start doing some investigation. You find that there's like clearly battle marks. Someone was dragged out. And then hopefully that leads back to the goblins, that the encounter that you planned in the mines with the goblins. Go there.
Fight the goblins. God.
So ultimately, you just want to figure out something, some encounter that they're going to have that you can tie all of these plot points to. Obviously, we're talking about goblins in a mine because it's just a very stereotypical thing, but, nothing wrong with that.
That's the thing too. And like, if you're starting off, stereotypes are okay for the most part, within reason, obviously, session 0, some of the stuff, but like, it's okay to have the basic. Again, like I can't tell you how many times I've used goblins as just a basic enemy because they're minions. They're easy to just
Right.
to throw in anywhere because goblin characters tend to be in it for like they do what they want.
Well, and they're
chaotic.
They're relatively weaker monsters
And
anyway.
they're weak too.
Right? Like just look through and be like, what's a weak monster that I can build an encounter around? But then you can do something interesting where like, okay, the goblins are bringing people to the mines. What's in the mines that they're bringing things to?
Yeah, like,
maybe it's like a bigger monster that you're like,
an eldritch god.
It could be an eldritch. No, like maybe it's a rock in the shape of an eldritch god.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're worshiping it because they
you
believe
have one goblin who's the shaman and they're trying to convince everyone. Or maybe, right, you can even do like, here's a person who's a warlock and it's a level 1 warlock and they've convinced the goblins that this rock is what it is. Where really it's just a person trying to get an opportunity out of it, right? Or maybe it's real. Maybe the rock is a Cthulhu monster. That's like the fun you can have with all of that.
Building out. So what would be the next thing? Okay, so if we're going a little further out now, so
right, we've already established too that there is a bigger town, Westville.
Right.
So we'll at least put that on the map. We'll let them know that Westville exists, and I would say, again, if you're the kind of person who's like, oh man, they're going towards Westville immediately, they're not going with the Goblin Trap. Have some random encounters in your pocket because that'll like slow them down at least for a session where it's like, okay, you're going to Westville. I roll. 2 wyverns attack you, and now the party's like, oh crap, we can't fight wyverns, we're gonna have to go flee, and then maybe they go to the mines unintentionally. You can justify later, why were those wyverns there? Maybe in the city there is a guild of wyvern riders and 2 of their ones got loose, so like the wyverns actually feel bad that you got attacked and now you have an in to the city, right? So don't feel, again, you don't have to justify it. That's the point of random encounter tables is you just need something for now and you move on. You can have probably one more thing, like one more like just landmark that they're going to go to that seems interesting.
Yeah.
Usually, again, ultimately you're just trying to stall your players until they get to the city, and then from there you can just be like, okay, let me figure it out. If you're able to improv, definitely allow them to get to the city and be like, yes, you look around this city, and what's odd is you notice a spire, very similar to that tower that you didn't explore, is right in the middle of the city, right? And that's where we'll end. And they'll be like, what?
And no one else
should we have
sees it
explored
but
that?
you.
No, like, yeah, mate, you could do that.
Yeah.
But like, they're like,
No,
should we
yeah,
have
okay.
explored that spire in the first place? Is it following us? Like, you can have
Yeah.
that really interesting conversation. And then it's,
Yeah, no, and so, I mean, world building, again, if you're someone who wants to do the prep work, have at it. We're not telling you shouldn't do it. We're just saying, if you're new to world building and you're looking for a simple way to start off with a simple town with simple things in it, and then building stories around that, that's perfect. I also like the idea, what you mentioned earlier, was having the big bad already introduced. I think
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, introducing it early. It doesn't even. The players don't have to know that it's the big bad.
Correct.
But like introducing a character,
or at the very least, what the tension is,
or connection. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if your ultimate villain is going to be a dragon that's tied to a player's backstory,
right?
Having maybe even literally like a cult of dragons or something, right? If you know like a specific god's going to be, you can have a cult there. Just alluding to it in some way, shape, or form is always interesting, right? Like if it's ultimately going to be a big eldritch demon, they might fight a small demon, in the first thing. I will say also, last thing, if you want to see us have a video on how to start from the top down, right, starting with all the big stuff, we'll talk about it. Oh, it'll be long, but we'll talk about it.
It will be a long video.
And I have some advice for that, including make your cities, but don't flesh them out. I do believe like it's ultimately this is a thing of collaboration. And so like there comes a point where like you flesh out so much that your players feel like they can't add to it. So
yeah.
Other than that, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. And we really appreciate it. If you liked these world building videos, we're going to maybe make some more. Yeah. We'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Let us know how you world build in the comments. Tell us like, I've seen the rice trick where people throw rice and marker on it. That's a neat way to do it. But like, that's more of a top down, I guess, because you're starting off big.
Yeah.
But yeah, just let us know how you world build. Give us some suggestions. We're always looking forward to reading your comments. And last but not least, stay witty.
Stay witty.
Stay.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about the goblins in the mines. We got to go get them.
No. What about Jim?
Jim has been taken by the goblins.
Are you sure?
I'm 50% sure. Can we just go to the mines and fight the goblins?
Fine, we'll go to the mines.